On Ramon, Kayla, and Will with Ramon Foster and Kayla Anderson. I'm Will Bowling, joined by VolQuest and On Threes, Austin Price. Austin, I loved in the VolQuest chat last night. The first comment you made was David Sanders update. This is the first time in a while that my first question to you isn't what's the latest with David Sanders, as he is now a Tennessee commit. How are you? Austin?
Glass must have gotten his eye on the break right there.
Okay, you got us?
There we go.
There we go. We got you. You got a David Sanders update for us, Austin?
Yeah, he's in class right now, and he's got practice this afternoon.
I love it. So let's just say, for the sake of the Tennessee fan or the SEC fan that has not been in the intricacies of the David Sanders sweepstakes, if you're picking one attribute, Austin, about this kid that you like the most and this staff finds most valuable about him as a prospect, what would that be?
I love his agility. I mean, I think for a kid that's near 6'6" and 295 pounds, he moves so well. And so I would go, kind of feet and his agility. I think the kid's a real athlete, and I think that'll really be one of the big things that he brings to the table at the college level.
So, Austin, it's incredible looking at Jaden Harmon, the inside linebacker flip that Tennessee gets out of the Alabama class over the weekend as well. The fact that this kid is in the 4.5s and under an 11-second 100-meter dash at the inside linebacker position, how big of a coup was this guy for Tennessee over the weekend as well?
It was a big deal. Tennessee needed another linebacker in this class. Coach Inge had been working Jaden for a long time. If you go back to like December, January, I would have told you that Jaden Harmon, had a really good shot to end up at Tennessee. He was really close with Coach Brian Jean-Marie, Tennessee's linebackers coach at the time. B.J. left, went to Michigan, and that really stunted Tennessee in his recruitment. He went ahead and committed to Alabama, but Coach Inge just kind of kept working him. And when he got to know Coach Inge, I think that kind of flipped things around for Tennessee quite a bit. So they were able to steal that one away from Alabama, which was a big deal. Alabama's got if not the number one, the number two class in the country. By most people doing the rankings, and he was one of their really nice gets, and so to be able to get him away from a rival at a position where you needed another key piece was a big deal for Josh Heupel.
Austin Price with us this morning, VolQuest on 3. Austin, in the same conversation of offensive linemen, man, one guy I feel like we should have talked a little bit more about, at least myself, I'll blame me for that, is Douglas Utu, man. High-ranked interior offensive lineman. Right now with David Sanders Jr. and him, you can pretty much have your left side of that offensive line set for years to come if they do what they're supposed to, and the coaches. How big is that for the Vols and the quarterbacks and just his offense?
It's huge. I think what Doug brings to the table is a lot of power. He's an interior guy. I mean, could he play some tackle in a pinch if you needed him to? He could, but I think his best football ahead of him is on the interior of the offensive line. And Tennessee's done a nice job of kind of bringing back that Polynesian culture / pipeline here in the last couple of years, whether it be through the high school ranks like Nico, or even the transfer portal with like a guy like Keenan Peely. So you add to that by bringing in Doug Utu, and Tennessee did a really nice job of kind of being very present in his recruitment for a long time, and just kind of kept chipping away. And then when he came here for his visit, he knew this is where he wanted to go, and he told the coaching staff on the visit and committed basically that night when he got back to Las Vegas publicly.
Wow. And on the other side of this, Austin, flipping the linebacker from Alabama and getting a big get in David Sanders Jr. and just this class in general, top 5 as it stands right now, what has this coaching staff been selling, especially for a guy like David Sanders Jr., right, who's, could go anywhere he wants to. The money is always going to be there for. What was the determining factor now that he's committed to the Vols?
I think it was how Coach Ellerby coaches. I think it was the relationships he had with Josh Heupel, with Glenn Ellerby, with the entire staff, with the current commits like George McIntyre. just the family atmosphere, the proximity to home. Family was really, really comfortable at Tennessee. Grandma and Grandpa, they took all the OVs, and I won't say they decided for David because I don't believe that's correct at all, but he had them as a part of the process, and they loved Tennessee. And I think when you looked at it, it was a family decision, and there's a family atmosphere here, and I think that's kind of the two things that kind of married together to form kind of a perfect fit for David Sanders and his family.
When you also look at a situation, Georgia Tech had a commit recently. Was it Joshua Perry?
Josh Petty.
Josh Petty chose to be a little petty, okay? And his statements after he committed to Georgia Tech, which is huge for them, getting a 5-star. Is there a reason why you wouldn't try to get both, or was it just a different plan for a guy like Josh Petty? I heard he's about 265, 255, 265. Is it just a long path to get him to that 5-star potential, and the Vols chose to pass on him?
Yeah, I think that would be. I wouldn't say the Vols passed on him. I just think that they just kind of both went two different directions. I mean, had Josh Petty wanted to come, Tennessee would have taken him. But I think he wanted to stay closer to home, and I'm not sure the SEC was for Josh Petty. I think if you look kind of at his finalists, like Tennessee was really kind of the only SEC school that was, a factor there. I mean, it was Florida State, it was Georgia Tech, it was Stanford, it was Ohio State. So you got some ACC schools, Big Ten schools. I personally think Petty, could be a really good center, but he's going to have to put on weight, and some kids struggle to do that. So I think that was always the fear with Josh Petty is he going to be able to pack on the pounds? Tennessee's had a few of those kids over the years where you get a kid that's kind of light, and you try to throw 45 and 50 pounds on them, and their body's just not meant for that. So, I mean, is that him? I don't know. I think he's a really good talent, and I think he's a fantastic athlete. So I think, I think time will tell. I do think that, he needs some time in the nutrition program, some time in the weight room, and if he can put on the weight, then Josh Petty's got, he's got a ton of ability, and the sky's the limit for him. It's going to boil down to the weight.
Austin Price of VolQuest joining us this morning on RK-Dub as we inch closer to the start of the season, Austin, and training camp wraps up. What can you tell us about the health of that running back room, Cam Seldon in particular?
Really healthy. Cam Seldon is cleared to go when Tennessee returns to the practice field. As classes have gotten started here in the early part of the week, I believe he will be taking that red jersey off, and will be start getting hit a little bit, which is something he's not really been doing a whole lot in fall camp. And I think that's big. Peyton Lewis, same thing. Deshaun Bishop and Dylan Sampson are good to go. D. Samp's been hampered a little bit with the knee, but it's been more precautionary just because they needed to get him to the start of the season. So they should be about as healthy as that room can be, considering where the fear in that room has been for the last 2 to 3 months after Cam got hurt. So, rehabbed, and then he was a quick healer. So he's back ahead of schedule. And so I'd say Tennessee will still be very cautious with him because they don't want to do anything that would re-injure him. But I do think you'll see him in the opener, which is big because that means that makes him even more of a go the second week against NC State, and we'll see if they can stay healthy from here on out.
Austin, I know this is a little bit more specific, but when we had Brent Hubbs on this past Friday, he spoke about just this year in terms of production, they've got to get more of that specifically in the red zone. What has Heupel said about the red zone work and how it's looked during that time in camp?
It's been good. I think, when they chart everything in practice, and I think that it's been more along the lines of what you saw 2 years ago, but that's against your own defense. Mm-hmm. That's against, in practice, which is not a real game. So we'll see if it still translates to the field. But I think they have a quarterback that makes more red zone throws. I just feel like Joe, the closer he got to the goal line, the touch passes became that much more important, which I thought was a tougher throw for Joe, just because he has that howitzer for an arm. So I think, with Nico, I think the touch passes are going to be something that he really thrives with, and I would venture to say they'll be better in the red zone this fall than they were last.
Austin Price of VolQuest is our guest on Twitter, covering Tennessee for VolQuest on 3 at Austin Priceless. Austin, what do you feel like you have learned? What has surprised you about this football team so far through fall camp? A position battle or just a development on this roster that maybe you didn't expect at the beginning of August?
Well, we don't see a whole lot of practice, so it's hard to say anything's truly surprised me. The one thing that I'm hearing coming, out of fall camp is just they're really pleased with where they are at linebacker. Arion Carter feels like he's taken a huge step this offseason. T. Landers continue to progress. Keenan Peely's healthy, and I think they're going to be really, really solid at linebacker. And we all know what they're going to be up front on the defensive line, just because they're so deep. I think that all helps the back end, where Tennessee still may not be, as good as they'd like to be, but I think they're going to be better at corner, and then we'll see about the safeties in the nickel spot. I think a lot of that will depend on just, who's playing, how they're playing. For me, I think it's the good vibes I'm hearing out of the linebacker room.
Austin, at wide receiver, how real do you think the buzz is this year around Dante Thornton and just being in a better position for him to have success? How big are the expectations internally for him in his second season at Knoxville?
Well, I mean, it's, Tennessee started the game today. I don't think Dante Thornton's going to be one of the starters. So I don't know if the internal expectations are that he's going to be just some all-world player, but I think he's much more comfortable. He's going to play. He's going to have a role. He had gotten more comfortable last year when they moved him outside before the injury, Will. So I think he's going to help this team, but getting past Brew McCoy, who looks fantastic, and getting past Chris Brazzell is going to be tough. But that's okay if you're playing a bigger rotation, which is what Kelsey Pope intends to do. But again, intends and doing are two different things. I think Tim Banks intends to play a bigger rotation at safety. Does he do it? We'll see. So you got to kind of see it to believe it, so to speak, when it comes to the rotations, just based off of recent track record. But at the same time, if they play a bigger rotation receiver, I think Dante Thornton plays a good amount, and I do think he can have success because I do think he's way more comfortable outside, way more confident outside, and I think when you go back to the end of last year, the Kentucky game, the catch at Missouri, he just looked so much more comfortable than he did when he was playing the slot against Alabama, and he was about to get hit on that one play and just dropped the ball. You could just tell the slot was not for Dante Thornton, but I think the outside spot is.
Have they found anybody for left guard and a backup center just yet throughout the course of this training camp? Has anybody claimed it?
Claimed it? No. I think, if the game started today, I think it would be Andre Keurig at left guard. But he's been banged up. So, he's got to prove he can stay out there. Coach Heupel was complimentary of Jackson Lampley yesterday. He was complimentary of Shamu Murad yesterday. At backup center, I don't know. They've had 4 years and haven't been able to find anybody behind Cooper Mays. It's a weird deal. At some point, the rubber meets the road. He can't return after this season ends. So they're trying to figure it out. I think William Satterwhite is going to be the guy of the future. That's the one that it feels like they have the most, praise for and high hope in. But he's a true freshman. I still think if Coop had to come out of the game, it's Dane Davis who would go to center for the interim until they feel like Satterwhite is ready.
Gotcha.
VolQuest's Austin Price, a 5-star get here on RKW every Tuesday at 8:20 at Austin Priceless, a must follow for Vols fans. Austin, excellent as always, sir. Thank you.
Oh, they just had a class change. David Sanders is his next class.
Up to the minute updates. As always, thank you, Austin.
See you guys.
See ya.
All right, there's Austin Price. Next week.